really lose every aspect of who you are, because you can't be who you really are in front of the people that are supposed to accept you for who you are. And it's soul crushing. Because of all of those things, I was always very quiet about things. Little things I would be really, really bold and brash and loud about. But when it came to things that directly affected me, or could possibly have down my life potential of how I would be treated, how people in my family would be treated, I was very quiet about those. And it was limiting, and it sucks. And all that does is teach you how to put on a face and really lose every aspect of who you are, because you can't be who you really are in front of the people that are supposed to accept you for who you are. And it's soul crushing. It's soul crushing. So yeah, it was.
Speaking of putting on a mask, let's go to your next time you came out. So you and I, and then you said 22 years. You came out as bi. How many years ago? 5, 6? I don't remember exactly how long ago it was that you sort of officially came out, at least that I became aware.
It was the first time I actually came out and said it was 2018.
Okay. So yeah, 7 years ago.
And that was to, like, even growing up, this is not something I would even talk to my friends about, like people that were supposed to be very close to me, because I was just, all of the grownups around me. I'm bisexual. I've always been bisexual. It's not, there wasn't really a, when did you realize that you were bi? It was just when I was little, I liked little girls and a few of the little boys.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the only issue I had with it was, again, the Bible said I should be put to death.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with me? Because this just feels as natural as liking redheads more than brunettes or something, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of keeping very quiet about that.
Right.
And being in this is like right at the very beginning of the AIDS epidemic, where the president of the United States is talking about, you know, how gay people deserve to die of this cancer type things. And in the 90s, the one kid that was a college kid that was beaten by two guys that thought he was hitting on them.
Matthew Shepard, right?
Matthew Shepard. And it's just like, I'm not saying that I had a legitimate direct fear of being brutally murdered. But what few people I knew or heard of that were gay were getting the shit kicked out of them.
Right.
And everyone around me, we just knew that all of this was wrong. And I kind of have to put all of that square at the feet of religion and that authoritarianism that creates, because there are no arguments against any type of non-heterosexuality that are not rooted in some type of dogma.
Yeah.
There's just not.
There's not. Not that I've ever found either.
I mean, there can be arguments against same-sex marriage, or as we like to call it, marriage. But you know, you can't look at things like, there's no reason in physics not to be heterosexual. Look at the animal kingdom, everything goes, you know, in so many different species. So it's like, you can't use science, you can't use biology, you can't use population mechanics, especially in the 21st century. Population mechanics is a stupid idea to be against homosexuality and, you know, non-heterosexuality, because we have IVF and stuff like that. The population is not going to decline because people like playing with different genitalia.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was from a very young age, it was one of the main things that I realized that I stood out against everyone I was around, everything I had been told, everything I was reading. It was the first identity thing that I had that was mine, and it had to stay that way.
Which is just terrible. I mean, it's terrible in so many ways. But then to have it's bad enough for people that are just, you know, they don't feel comfortable in society. Okay, that's one thing. But then to also think the people that I love, that are around me, that I respect or whatever, once I say this thing, they literally think I should die. Now they're going to not say it that way. Some will, you know that. But I'm going to have to pray for you, because if I don't, you will die. You're going to go to hell. There are all these other things, right? I can't imagine growing up like that. And since you said you kind of knew this early on, you definitely had a tortured process having to deal with all that in such a tiny town and in the United States. I mean, quite frankly, it's, you know, and a lot of places in the world, not just the United States. But how did you, was that any part of the factoring of you leaving, or was that just an additional thing in the back of your mind that made you a relief when you left religion? Did it push you away, I guess?
No. They really were not connected, because given the you don't question your elders, I was always, there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
That was a normal part of who I was, but apparently that meant that there was something wrong with me, just in and of itself. By the time it actually got to asking the questions about religion, the damage was done.
Yeah.
I had been, I mean, like I said, when I say that I've always been bisexual, when I was very young, like that first going and finding the stash of Playboys and stuff like that,
right.
I found Penthouse Forums, which was stories.
Yeah.
And this is Penthouse Forum, probably 1985 or 4. And, you know, I was very young. There's not a lot to do in a small southern town, and I was too young to drink by this point.
Right.
But I found this Penthouse Forum, and there was a special section for non-straight writings. And I was like, oh, so this is okay.
Ah.
You know, that
feels
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't the other side. It wasn't like reading something like that and going, oh my, I like that, and I'm going to go down that path. So yeah, by the time the question of my belief and what later became very open atheism, it was not at all a factor.
Okay. So
anybody watching that thinks that's it, you just didn't like God because you wanted to go screw dude. It's not. It's they're like connected, but completely separate.
No, I get it. But you're right. Someone's going to say that.
Yeah.
They're going to say it, even though you just said that's not what happened. They're still going to say it. Because
where it does come in, though, is that 30 plus years after I realized that I did not have any reason to believe these things, still dealing with a quarter of a century of growing up in this area, working in construction since I was a young teenager, because my dad was in the construction. So I was on construction sites with grown men, and you just, all of those, it's like you learn to just push it down and push it down and push it down and push it down and push it down. For the past week, I have been dreading this interview, this conversation, specifically because me even being able to vocalize that still has the impact that I am doing something wrong.
Does it?
Just by talking about it, that I should be embarrassed to talk about it, which, when you have that type of internalization of things, it affects My entire life, I never had a best friend that I could talk to about this.
Yeah.
And you can't have good systems of communication with people when you can't tell them or even talk about something that is just such a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that comes from that dogmatic, authoritarian mentality that says, okay, fine, maybe you don't deserve eternal damnation, but what you're doing is wrong. Why?
Yeah.
You're on your third divorce because you couldn't keep it in your pants down in Pensacola. Why are you telling me that the thing I'm doing with adults and trying to, why am I wrong? Why? Right. And when you grow up not being able to talk about things like that and not being able to question things like that, you have no basis for communication. And the absolutely wonderful woman that I am with now, we purposefully and constantly work on communication. And even, I don't even remember when I first talked to her about it. And she was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, anyway, because I'm like, literally, it is ripping my soul apart just to say, okay, we need to talk about this thing. And they're like, okay, is there more? Or,
and by the way, pass the potatoes, because I don't know where we're going with the conversation. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny, when my daughter came out, we always say the same thing. It's like, first of all, you and I both were in theater. It's like, if you're going to come out to someone, and same thing with the woman that you're with now, it's like, if you're going to come out to somebody, the theater people are the first you should come out to, because they're the easiest to get to, because they're fine with it. And when my daughter came out, we're like, okay, it's not what we expected for your life, but all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Pass potatoes, and it's a shame though, because you and I, I know your children obviously, but if one of them were to come out to you, you'd be very much like me, like, all right, maybe not how I saw your life going, because we all, oh, a little girl's going to get married. Well, all these things, we see these things, right? But okay, just switch gears and go a different direction. I'm fine with that. So many people, though, you mentioned kids being kicked out. When my daughter was in high school, we had kids sleeping on our couch constantly because they would come out as gay, because she went to art school, so that she knew more people that would come out. And they would come out to their southern redneck family, and they would kick them out. And my daughter would just bring them home like strays. They'd be sleeping there for days, weeks, whatever, because it was like, all right, it doesn't bother us. But like, how dare they kick their child out because they've pretty much, a lot of times, they've just said they're gay. They even haven't done anything about it yet. They've just said they were and got to go. And like you said earlier, I will make it a blanket statement, which I don't try to do very often, but 100%, that was religious based. It wasn't anything else. It was religious that caused that whole thing, right? You don't kick your child out for being gay unless there's a religious component. It is what it is. You can fight me in the comments if you don't believe that, but I'm going to stick to that one.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Religion aside, if you're going to kick your child out for being gay, kick your child out for being trans, don't have children.
Yeah.
For the love of all of whatever you find holy, do not have children. It's not freaking Build-A-Bear.